Game Data.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Game Data. Today on the podcast, I talk with Izzy Kestrel about their game Dreamscape Explorer, the sort of weird physical installation game they debuted at NYU's No Quarter event in 2024, where players would play a game on a big projector screen while also players that were inside the venue were walking around and scanning QR codes to access other games that would then affect the state of the main game. So we talk about client-server network architecture. We talk about using different game engine tools like Downpour and Twine and Bitsy and how you get those to talk with something like Godot. It's a really great episode. We haven't talked to anybody that's done a physical installation game before. So I hope you sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Game Data.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Game Data Podcast. Today on the podcast, I am pleased to have someone whose work I have seen around online a little bit, and then kind of unsuspectingly ran into some of their work at a recent game showcase in New York called NYU's No Quarter event. There are a lot of people there, a lot of really great game developers, but one person specifically had a very interesting project, and they're on the podcast to talk about it today. So I'm pleased to bring you Izzy Kestrel. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so glad you're here. Your game at No Quarter was called Dreamscape, and I want to say it was the talk of the show. Personally, I've heard more about your project later on, in part because it feels like you made a game for No Quarter that was like a very No Quarter-y game. Like it was sort of laser targeted to knowing the types of people that would be at No Quarter and also like the context in which No Quarter takes place. So if you could tell our audience a little bit about Dreamscape, because I don't even know if they'll be able to play it again or if it will ever exist beyond No Quarter. So if you can, for the record of history, tell us a little bit about this weird thing that you made.
Yeah, so it's called Dreamscape Explorer. And it's kind of the joke is like, Netscape Navigator, Internet Explorer, kind of mashing those titles up. The idea is that it's a game that takes place in the 90s, and you're like active in like a chat room about people that, I don't know, talk about their dreams or whatever. And someone discovers this strange old piece of software that someone had cracked it, they have like the cool cracktro intro music and everything. And it's a web browser that allows you to explore other people's dreams. So the main game itself was made in Godot. It was projected up on a screen in kind of the main area of the main ballroom at the venue. But that's only like a small part of the game. There's also a bunch of mini games that are kind of like the dreams, so to speak, that you discover via your smartphone, and you are able to access those by finding QR codes scattered all around the venue, scanning those, and then by completing the QR code games, those dreams actually have an impact on the game that's happening on the main projector.
Yeah, it's like important to say that it's not like the person playing the game on the main projector kind of like stands up and walks around the venue to find the QR codes. It's that they are sort of playing a game on a projector. And then I don't actually know how much kind of level setting you did for them when they would sit down at the projector, if people even knew there was other stuff going on. But basically other people in the venue could find QR codes, scan them, access a game, and then sort of I almost thought of it like somewhere between like Twitch Plays Pokemon and just I guess general sort of like live stream chat interaction, but you do it through a game itself. So other people would sort of play games, and also the people scanning those things. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not necessarily the case that they would have even known that they were affecting someone else's game in the venue.
Yeah, that's kind of the fun of it, actually. There's kind of a challenge in the way that we set it up, because we fretted a lot about tutorial stuff and then realized we should have fretted even more, because it was really hard to make people really understand the scope of what they were doing. So I think it started out, we were like, okay, the first room in the game, to kind of visualize the game a little bit, it's kind of like a Zelda, if you imagine like a Link to the Past, or kind of like an old top-down sort of action RPG sort of vibe. So you have a character, you're walking around and kind of exploring a space. And then the very first room that you're in, there's just a locked door, basically. There's not a lot going on, you're just kind of stuck. And the idea is that there is a QR code nearby. At first we thought would be cute and put it on a physical locked door near our display, but that was like directly behind the person that would be playing. So like they're not going to see that.
People lock in as soon as they're playing a video game. They're
Right,
not going to turn around and be like, let me scan this QR code.
Right, especially because they don't know that they're looking for it in the first place. So it's like, no, we should like put it like on the table or something like near the controller. And then when you scan that QR code, it takes you to a little, and we can talk about the different engines that I use for the mini games too. Mm-hmm. Specifically, the first one is a Bitsy game. And this Bitsy game is basically like a mirror image of what you see on the projection screen. Obviously a much lower resolution. But there's
like a live streamed player position as well, or just the map itself?
Just the map.
Okay.
Right. So then you do like a little tiny, really simple puzzle. Like you go talk to someone and go move a thing around. And then the door unlocks in that room. And then when the door unlocks in the phone game, it also unlocks in the main game. And people immediately had a very hard time. People were stuck in that room for a minute.
Well, it's also, it's worth saying too, like the QR codes were not large. They were probably about the size of like the palm of your hand, right?
They were, there was a range in sizes. We kind of like, I think some of the material aspects were not as well planned as I would have liked them to be. Like maybe I would have liked to like gotten some big things printed prior to the event. Yeah. But the way that we were doing things, like the way that probably most people, I know other people that were at the event were doing things. We were hacking things together the day of. We were like adding new games. I think I added a one-person's game. There were a lot of guest spots where I had other people kind of like do guest games for me.
Sure.
And one of them came in like an hour before the show started. So like we were coming in really hot, and I really just like had the NYU folks like, how big of a printer do you have? What's the biggest printer that we can have access to in this moment? Which was a little bit bigger than standard size, but not quite as large as maybe I would have wanted.
Well, and also like the venue was like pretty big, but also No Quarter was like packed. Like It was very packed. Like imagine like crowded concert type packed inside those rooms. So like unless you knew to sort of look for these or like understand like that, and it's a gathering of like game developers in a very sort of tech oriented space. So like seeing a QR code on a wall doesn't necessarily look out of place. It's like, oh, that's someone's project from 2 weeks ago they forgot to take down. So it's like the element of like discoverability, I think, was obviously working against you in some ways, but also could be sort of serendipitous where someone was like, oh wait, this is part of the event?
Yeah.
There's some of that beauty there. And I think that I said at the start of the podcast, right? But that was sort of the first time, and I've been to No Quarter probably 4 or 5 times now. And like, that was the first time I'd seen a game at No Quarter specifically, like really engage with like the physical aspect of the event itself. Most people, I guess, do you want to like describe what No Quarter is broadly? I'm just saying it like people know. Everyone lives in New York, so it's
so weird thing. The NYU Game Center puts on this event called No Quarter, and I think the premise effectively is that they invite. I think it's always been about 4 people, for developers or kind of teams. Like Holy Wow was there, the folks that made Trombone Champ, and they're 2 people. So they invite some folks to come and make a thing for this event. And the event is just the one night. It's about 3 hours long, and that's it. So we kind of like make a thing. We're commissioned to make a thing for this event, stand it up the night before, tear it down after 10 o'clock the same night. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of gone, and it depends on what you make and what you show off, right? Like I know that there have been games that have been shown there that went on to become things that were sold on Steam or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's also an opportunity for folks that have like interesting alternative controls, right? Like the Holy Wall folks had a game called Tower of Typing, which was like a bunch of keyboards. There were like 10 different keyboards, I think, on these giant widescreen like curved monitors that went vertical up to the ceiling. And it was a competitive typing game, but the gimmick was like, we just got like a bunch of weird keyboards we had in our house. And like, do you want to use like the nice mechanical one? Do you want to use the cute pink Hello Kitty one? Do you want to use the one that's like 5 times the size of a normal keyboard? And you can't do stuff like, you can't like buy a Steam game and then have that experience of like touching a bunch of your keyboards. It's like very much specific to a physical space and playing in that kind of zone. And that was what I was really kind of taken by when I was invited to do something for it.
And yeah, and so you like sort of, not only did you make one game, you kind of made like 6 games.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I can't just make one thing. I need to make like a bunch of things, I need to make this really hard on myself.
I want to dive into like some of the more like game data parts of this. So one thing that I think is interesting kind of at the outset, right, is that you use not only Godot, which is, I mean, it's not Unreal or Unity, but also you mentioned using Twine, Downpour, Bitsy, and PuzzleScript,
right?
Which I would like describe as like alt game making tools, and they're not even like alt in the sense of like Construct or like bigger, bigger, smaller engines, right? These are like small tools. Like I'm sort of interested in that decision, and also the fact that they're all different, right? It wasn't like, okay, I chose Downpour or just Twine or just Bitsy for these other games. Like I'm interested, why choose a different engine for each one? What was that? Yeah, I don't know if you can talk about that decision.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Construct actually, because I have a long history of using Construct. That's how I got started in games.
Construct's great, yeah.
It's a really great tool. And that was definitely on my list of like things that I could use. Like I have the capability of using that. I can't remember, Godot's had some like, with their 4.0 release, since then they've had some like rocky road with their web exports.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we could have done stuff in Godot as well. The web part was really the critical thing, right? Is that Bitsy, Twine.
Sorry, and did the main game also work on the web, or was that just like a standalone application?
The main game was a standalone Windows app.
Okay, so you weren't like web exporting from Godot for that one. That one was just like a normal Windows app that was, okay, gotcha.
Right. Yeah, so all the 4 that we chose to use for the phone games were all browser based, right? So obviously that's critical to like, you need to scan a QR code, it needs to open. I don't want people to have to like download an app or like do any extra installation. It needs to be just instantaneous. So those are 4 tools that I'm familiar with to some extent, that I've made a PuzzleScript game once. I've made a couple of Twine games. I've made some Bitsy games. Downpour is something that I guess I made one Downpour game. I love Downpour. I want to make more things in it, and I always kind of forget about I should make more things in it.
I thought Downpour was just a phone app. Is it they have a web editor as well?
So Downpour is a phone app. So you make things in the phone, but they export.
Right.
You can play them in the app, or they export in just in HTML. So if you want to upload to itch or something, you can also just play in a browser, right? Gotcha. So the reason to go for like small tools like that is that we wanted to have things like we could churn out a lot of these, right? Like the scope and scale of these tools is as such that you can't make a 50-hour JRPG. Someone could in Bitsy.
I would say like someone's gonna be like, yes, I can.
Yes, that's a challenge. But it keeps us on the rails a little bit. Where like we can churn stuff out pretty quickly in these things. Like Twine is like a lot of text. You can write some stuff. And they're all supposed to be short anyway. They're only supposed to last a couple minutes for each of these like dreams. I don't know if I said the word bridges yet, but when we originally, before we landed on like the aesthetic, I suppose, we were referring to like the Godot game was called the cyberspace. The venue, the physical venue, we called it the meat space. And then the games on the phone were bridges. And that was kind of like the terminology that we use. So I might just interchange into bridge and dream a lot. Those mean the same thing to me.
And then I guess you could presumably, right, you could have just used Downpour for all of them or Bitsy for all of them. Like
sure.
why do, I guess, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong again, but it's none of them ever used more than once. Everyone is used once. Is that true? You don't have like 2 Bitsy games and like one of everything else.
We do. We do totally. Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. So I liked having some level of choice and like what kind of, I wanted to make things that when you pull up on your phone, it looks a little bit different each time maybe, or it's part of like the kind of the dreaminess. I think it plays into that a little bit where it's like you're in all these different weird spaces and like you're experience weird like things described in text, or you're seeing like photographs that someone took through a Downpour game. But also I wanted to have I like to make different things, and I want my team to have like some range that if they like are more comfortable in one tool than another, they could do something different.
Sure.
And then also for guests, right, that I had specifically I had V Buckingham who made Downpour.
Mm-hmm.
I had them make a game for the event. Adam Ledoux, who made Bitsy, I had Adam make a game for it as well. So like I already had people in mind, sort of the other people that I knew that were really good with a certain tool, and I want to be able to just like have them come in and just make a cool thing right away without having to like,
Gotcha.
oh, I don't know Godot, I don't know Unreal or whatever. I have to go learn a new thing to like contribute to this.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, and so it's like it's a little bit of, you want to tie things together. Also, like the no quarter timeline is like, it's tight, right? NYU does not reach out to you for years before they do no quarter. I think it's 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, that's about right.
So it's like, it's not like, hey, we can train up a whole team in our like bespoke Unity workflow. It's like, no, you're going to take as many shortcuts as possible to just ship the game. That's cool. And then, so I guess like, is there anything you want to talk about like sort of for the tools themselves and kind of things that you did with them? Obviously, we could talk about what you did with Godot, but were you doing anything with any of the tools that was sort of orthogonal to how they typically operated? And I don't want to talk about the server stuff yet, which I know will probably be the biggest part of this, but like for the tools themselves, or I guess it's hard for you to say because you weren't necessarily the person that did all the small ones, but like, were there uses or ways of using all those separate engines that like you felt were like sort of interesting or clever? Or was it more like, oh, this is kind of how we do, this is how you make a puzzle script game, and then you made a puzzle script game? Yeah.
So I think for the most part, they were pretty, building the games in these tools is pretty straightforward, pretty like, standard for how you use the tools. Where it gets a little weird or messy was like with the way that you would interface with the game, because each of these things has so another term that we would use is impact. We would say like, for example, to go back to that first room, you have a room in the Godot game. In the cyberspace, you have a bridge, Dream, that has a room in it, and you open the door in the Bitsy game to unlock the door in Godot. So the way that works in the back end is when you go unlock that door in the Bitsy game, Bitsy is mostly like, there's walk around and there's a lot of dialogue. I had like a dialogue tag, I think, that was injected. So you would go talk to a character, and then like an invisible tag would be in the text string that would say like, curly brace, impact, and then like a key basically to say like open door, or just like a plain string effectively. And so then that would get passed back to the Godot game, and then the Godot game would see, oh, that's the open door impact. I need to open this door. So for Bitsy, it was hacking in that impact key. And Bitsy is pretty hackable. Luckily, there's a lot of people have done a lot of hacks like that. Like I think I actually got like an injection Borksy, I think is what it was, that like, I could easily make a new like dialogue tag like that, and then just hook it into my like WebSocket stuff that handles all the networking bits.
I guess we can just talk about that. So you had, so for all the separate games, like presumably you kind of have to have some sort of grand central station for all these apps to kind of route through to a server somewhere that's then routing to Godot. So was this kind of like key value thing that you were describing for Bitsy? Did every app kind of have a way to emit like a key value to a WebSocket through some mechanism? And then did you have like some unified like server.js or client.js code that you like pasted into every app?
Yeah. So every app, every bridge had its own method of like, in Bitsy we'd use dialogue tag. In Downpour it was like, Downpour is like, it's kind of like a collage almost, where you like put images in and put like text in. So you would put like a text object and you would make it invisible. You would just change the font to like be transparent, and then you would say like, make the text impact something to call that impact. So when you hit that page in the Downpour, it would send that impact.
So Downpour can like do web requests, or you were doing that on your end?
I was doing all that on my own. So I would get each thing compiled basically. There's a whole like, I had a build process. We can talk about pipeline, but I basically get all of the source code built into these HTML files that would get served up. And then once I had generated those files, I would tack on like a common.html that would have all of the WebSocket, request, connect to the server, handshake, send an impact, stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess so for every app, like I remember Bitsy, it was sort of like hosted like in a browser. And so you'd have to like make stuff there. But I guess there's a way as well for that one to export it to HTML and JS. And then it's the same process for all of them. So you just build them all, and then you're exporting them all. And then you're bringing in your kind of client common.js thing you mentioned to all of them, and then kind of like re-exporting them again. Like, are you doing like Webpack bundling or whatever? Are you just kind of serving an HTML page for each of them at the URLs?
Just HTML pages. Yeah. And I think I did a little bit. there's a little bit of time where I was concerned about like security is maybe not the right word, but like hacking, like how can people like cheat the system? Because I'm not doing anything. I'm not like, I've listened to this podcast
You're not doing
before.
Like a Firebase login before someone.
Right. No, I thought about that too. But I've listened to this podcast. You have some very smart people out here talking about some very smart engineering things they do. I'm not an engineer. I want to say I'm not an engineer by trade. Almost all my jobs have been engineering jobs, but like I don't consider myself good at it. I'm like very much like it's a means to an end for me. It's like I'm kind of like just gluing stuff together and hoping that it works, right? And then like design is where my heart is. But I did some stuff to try to like make it so things are like get hashed or whatever. Like when you load up a thing, it's like a jumbled mess of stuff. When you start a dream, like if you scan a QR code, that QR code, the string that it's giving your phone, right, is a URL with an HTML like extension on the end. But as soon as that page loads, there's some JavaScript that cuts the end off of it. So if you try to reload that page, it's just going to take you back to the main diary page, which I don't, if we can talk about that too. But so the idea is that these things are all ephemeral, right? So it's like, I want you to go find that QR code. I don't want you to be able to just like refresh it and like, oh, I got a bad ending in this game, I'm going to reload it and try again. No, you have to go find the thing again because I made it hard for you to do that.
I guess did that also mean that the back button like wouldn't work? That you sort of erased from history? Yeah, I would. Erase the history too. Yeah. I had a question about this too, because I was like, okay, so the people who are playing the like kind of mini games are not necessarily in sync with where the person who's sitting down is playing. And not only that, but like two separate people can like unbeknownst to each other be playing the same mini game. So like, what does that look like from a sort of a code networking perspective? Is the person behind just like playing a game and nothing is happening and the Godot's not listening to any signals, or it's all that they've already passed at this point? Or like when people scan the QR code, did you kind of like bring them to where like the latest advancement was in a certain game? Like how did you kind of work with that?
Yeah. So when you load a game, when you find a dream, you scan a QR code and it comes up on your phone. You're always starting at the beginning. So it's always like, a linear kind of like you're going through the start of a bits of game and you go to the end of it, or you start at the beginning of a Twine. That was another thing that was a real bear to kind of resolve of like, I don't want someone to, if you start a Twine game on your phone, I think the default behavior of Twine is to like bring you back to where you left off, which is not what I wanted. I wanted you to have like a fresh start.
Oh, interesting. Sure.
A important piece of context maybe is that I wanted people to be able to like shuffle in and, it's a live event. I didn't want people to like feel like, oh, this game has like, there's a really strict progress thing that we're doing. And like, if I come in late, then I can't contribute anymore because it's too late into the game.
Right.
So there's a timer, which is kind of like in the flavoring of the hacked app is like, oh, this is a trial version of this browser, so it's gonna like kick you off after so long. But there's a 1 hour, a 60-minute timer going on the whole time, and that's in sync with the event started at 7. So from 7 until 8, that was one run of the game, and then the game would reset and it would take you back to that first room with the locked door. And the idea was that people could go and kind of interface with things, and then it would start over, and then people that were coming up fresh could explore it fresh. People that were like, if they were into it and they like had played already, they could kind of show the new people how to like, oh, I know how to get through these parts. And then the actual like to beat the game, you have to like go collect these 3 items to like go to bed in the game. Realistically, if you like knew exactly what you're doing, it's like a 10-minute game. It's not a very long game, but the idea is like, I want people to kind of play with it and just like play around in it and then be able to come back, and it'd be cool if they could speed run it later,
Was there like for like the mini games, like was progress explicitly gated in the sort of main game around the progress in the mini games? Like, did someone have to go do something in one of the buttons for the main game to kind of progress?
Yeah. So for that door at the beginning, that was the case.
The very first door. Yeah.
And then we try to like teach that, right? It's like you need to, there's some level of cooperation, or you need to like explore a little bit. That was on like there was a lot of me sitting behind the projector, like furiously hacking and trying to fix things. A lot of stuff broke right away. It was very stressful. The only thing that was stable was my server, which we'll talk about, and I'm very proud of the server. But the Godot game had a lot of issues. There were a lot of bugs. There was a lot of stuff that went wrong. I ended up deleting that door after the first like 30 minutes. I'm like, you know what? People can't find the QR code. The controls are right here. The QR code is right above the controls. They're not seeing it. They don't know that it's there. So I deleted that door. Whatever. That's fine. And then people were able to explore there's 3 different puzzles routes that kind of branch off into to get the 3 different items you need, and each one of those has like a little mechanism that's kind of like key to the puzzle that you need to find the right dream to sort of get through those puzzles. But a lot of them we tried to design really intentionally of like, these things can help you maybe do it faster, but they're not like make or break. Like you can kind of fumble your way through it, and people did usually. But we had I think I had a kind of a categorization of like a priority of like, okay, so there's like mission critical bridges that like these are things you need to find to order to beat the game. There's like optional ones that like, maybe they make your character run faster. They give you some kind of like perk, but they're not gonna like make or break your progress. And then the last one, I think I called them goofy bullshit, where they just like, it makes a fart noise or something when you find one of the ones in the bathroom, and then like a toilet flushes or something like that. That was kind of like the space that we were playing with.
Were they like, this is maybe getting a little bit like the sort of like the Godot architecture, but like could people inside like the Dream games, if they like did some action that Godot received, would it like sort of apply the state of that action regardless of where the person was at, or do they have to kind of share locality with the room or the action that they were doing?
Yeah, so it was one in Godot. It was like one big map. I think we did just like the sprite tile map stuff to design it.
Gotcha.
So the whole state is all there. We're not like loading.
So it's all loaded in. You're not like
it's all
like
loaded
some
in.
Other room. Okay, gotcha.
Right. And yeah, things can happen anywhere, anytime. Like you could be at the end of the game. You could be at the beginning of the game, and someone's doing something that affects the end of the game. And like that was part of the mystery of it too. Is I like that idea of like especially people replaying it. And I think now that it's been a couple months I've thought about this, so I got to remember things. I said it was a 60-minute timer. It's a 30-minute timer. So it was 30 minutes. So we could have like 6 play sessions basically.
Sure.
And in those play sessions, people come up and like do something, and like they might get to a certain part where it's like, oh, this there's a bridge here that wasn't there before. I played earlier and there wasn't a bridge there. That's probably because someone did the dream that allowed that path to open up, but you wouldn't know that because you weren't, they're halfway across the physical venue somewhere doing that.
Right.
So people are kind of like, how does this work? What is this? How are these things fitting together? Because all of the WebSocket networking stuff is completely transparent. There's no communication aside from like, there are QR codes that are kind of like, we kind of colored them in a similar like aesthetic to the game. People don't know that they're connected, and then they don't know, and they look visually different,
right,
that they're part of the game. And then it's like, oh, did that thing that I played earlier, is that part of it? And that was, like I said, a hard thing to tutorialize. And that was like one of the flaws of it, I think, is just like getting people on the same page. But that was
just understanding like what was happening, because it could just be like, oh, the game was weird and there wasn't a thing there last
Yeah, there was
time.
just a weird bug.
Someone was always scanned the code and they did the thing. It was really cool.
Right. And so the kind of like connected piece that I tried to like hint at that stuff with the game kind of looking on the projector, it kind of has this browser, like old Windows vibe to it. There's a chat window on the side. And so in that chat window, whenever someone goes, like if someone scans a code in the bathroom, it would pop up like username says, oh, my stomach hurts, I'm going to use the bathroom or whatever, right? People would say like, oh, I just, did this thing over by the watering fountain or whatever. It would kind of give you like little hints at locations. And the idea is that people would see that and be like, oh, I walked past like this thing. That's probably this thing,
Do you think like people got it, like in general?
The people that I talked to and explained it got it.
The people that I told about.
The people that I explained exactly what it was, I think they kind of got it. Yeah, no, I think like it was a very chaotic environment. There are a lot of people.
It was like, I want to emphasize, it was packed. Like,
right.
packed. So it's like, and it's loud, right? Like there's like a lot of video games are making a lot of noise and a lot of people are laughing, and nuance is easily lost or like subtlety is like easily lost in this type of environment. Because to be clear, like people who don't know, like most games that are at no quarter are often like sort of like raucous, like kind of party 1v1 head v head games. It's like, it's the no quarter kind of echoing the idea of like an arcade. So it's games that are meant to sort of be like loud and competitive. And so it's hard to be like kind of what you're describing of like, there's a lot of stuff going on that can be kind of easy to get lost just because of the kind of intensity of the venue in which it's taking place in general.
Yes. And it was very lost.
Do you want to, do you want to talk about the server as well? Like kind of what you were doing on that end. So we've got like all these client apps are reporting through your WebSocket code to some server. What's the server doing?
Yeah. So we have kind of the three pieces of it, right? We have Godot, we have the 4 different tools making the small games on your phone. And then there is a server in the middle kind of managing the whole show. The server I made with Node.js, just JavaScript is what I would, and I guess kind of makes sense because all the web stuff anyway. So there's a Node.js server that runs, I think it was like using Express or whatever to have different endpoints for things.
Yep.
And then the Godot game would send, when the Godot game starts, it would send like a handshake, like JSON blob, just say like handshake, whatever. This is my like ID or whatever that I'm the Godot game. That would go to the server. The server would catch that and say, okay, you're the main event. Like I'm going to assign you to this thing. I'm going to like track this WebSocket connection. And then every Dream game played on the phones, they would also connect to the server. They would handshake as soon as they load up, and then they would maintain that connection. And then whenever one of the dreams, like you open a door, you do some kind of thing in one of the mini games, it would send another JSON blob back to the server, say impact, open door, flip switch, turn off lights, whatever, and then that would get routed back to the Godot game. And there was some ID stuff that I generated unique IDs for like each player that connected. So every device basically was identified as like a player. As soon as you entered one of the games, if you went to the diary page, which is kind of like the main, if you went to like the Dreamscape Explorer, like main URL, there's like this really like old web 90s coded like my diary page that would basically show you a list of all the different games that you had found. If you wanted to go replay a dream, you would go to that page and it would show you a list of ones that you've actually scanned the QR codes for. So you had some level of like, you could see your personal progress throughout the night.
Was that saving on like sort of device local storage, or were you actually like maintaining that on the server?
Yeah, so local storage would contain the unique ID for that player, and then that unique ID, when you load that page, would get sent back to the server, which then had a Postgres, a SQL database. It's probably like super over-engineered at this point, but like I have like, again, just like I'm doing what I know, right? It's like, okay, I know that I can do this with like whatever.
Make it work.
Yeah, it's like I'm going to stand up a database because that's what it seems like the right idea at this point. So there's a database that has the players all in there. When you first get a unique ID assigned to you, you also get a randomly generated like AOL username. Which is like, like Sleepy Blowfish 54 or something. It would just be like randomized, like some kind of sleepy verb and then like an animal or color or name or whatever. And then you could regenerate that from your page if you wanted to.
Did you use like Faker.js, or is there any specific interesting
I used
of
some kind of node package that did randomized names. They had like some built-in libraries for like animals, colors, and then just like people's names.
Gotcha.
And then like I think verbs in the front, or adjectives or whatever. But I replaced that and just only used like sleepy ones, dreamy, snoozy, stuff like that. Because like that's kind of the vibe. All these people are in a chat room talking about dreams and sleep, right? So they have to have appropriate names. Yeah, I think that's kind of the overview of. Did you
get a sense of how many people like actually? Because you could look at the database, presumably how many rows there are, how many people.
I was thinking about that. So I had some code set up to when I was doing testing. So there's this big monster of a build script that I had, just like a bash script that would basically, for each of the 4 tools that I was using, I would have source code for those. Like Bitsy has its own like kind of like, markup that it spits out.
Yeah.
Twine has like the twee markup. Each thing has kind of its own source, and then I would run all that stuff through like these bespoke tools that I found. Like Twine has someone made like a thing in Go that you could like compile Twine through a command line. Someone did something like that for Bitsy. Downpour is pretty easy because it was just like a JS file that I just like include to the main HTML. The puzzle script was the real nightmare because it was like I tried a bunch of different like build pipeline things like in Node, and like I finally found like I think puzzle script like build system or something that I used, but I had to like customize my own fork of the puzzle script engine to make the WebSocket stuff work. And then
can you please just do it in Bitsy?
Yeah. I was like, oh, and I posted on like, I was on like a server with Draknek and friends, Alan Hazelden. Like I worked on a project that I hope he's gonna announce sometime soon, maybe when this is out. But there is like a thinky puzzle game server, and so I put a call out in there for like people that were good puzzle script, because there were a lot of people that are really smart with that, and there were a handful, at least like 2 or 3 games I think I got out of that I like am really glad were in the collection. They're really super good. I would not have even to the last minute I would not have cut that stuff if I had to like go in and not go in and massage it myself to make all the WebSocket stuff work. I would have done that. Yeah. But somehow in the last like week or 2, I got the build pipeline to work for PuzzleScript 2 and was able to make it happen. But what was the question? I feel like I went on a tangent.
I think that's great. I think one thing that's like also interesting about this, I think I missed the fact that this like kind of local user ID stuff happened, so that effectively someone gets their own almost like passport for games they encountered for Dreamscape. And I heard multiple people just excited to fill out their sheet. Like I don't even know if they sort of clocked that like there was like a game they were affecting. Yeah. They were just like, oh, I want to go find all the games. And that was kind of, I don't even know if you like sort of intended for that to happen, but like people that I had talked to, that became the game for them, was just to like go find the QR codes and sort of like fill out their stamp pack. To like get all the games, which is sort of like a funny, weird, like, interpretation of what you were doing. Cause you're like, oh, this is all serving this other thing. But you're like, well, the people kind of got it. They're like, oh, it's fun to find a QR code and like watch something else be on this list.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there was a point where the design was more focused on that, of like I wanted people to have like that diary page is kind of like your profile page, and like I wanted to make it so you could there was a cut thing that we were going to do. I had the idea for like dream dollars, so you would like find money in some of the games, like Bitsy games and things like that. Like you can like walk around the tiles and like you can find there's one game, I think it was the one I put in the men's bathroom. It's a game where you are trying to like go to this person's house and in Bitsy, and almost every single tile in their yard is if you step on it, it like goes to a game over, and it says, oh, you stepped in dog shit, sorry, you're done. And there's like a really specific path you can take to get to the front door and like finish that game properly. You'd have to replay it a lot because it's not obvious at all what the path is. But if someone did that, I wanted to be like, oh, hey, here's like $5. You could go, re-roll your username, or like you can do something, or maybe even in the Godot game, there's like a character blocking a door that says, oh, I need $10. Can you give me $10? And then there'd be some mechanism of like, you have to send money into the game. It was a little too complicated at the point that we were at to like really implement that stuff. But I wanted to,
especially if you're working with like a 30-minute iteration loop effectively, and like you get complete brain drain after that, because people step in. And I mean, it's also right. It's a live event that has it has a start and an end, but there's no like clear, nothing is like happening more than like people are in a room together looking at video games. So like people would just leave, you know?
Right.
It's not like you had like the sort of undivided attention for 30 minutes of a cohort of people. It's like people would wander around, they'd look at it, they might play it for 5 minutes, stand up and walk away, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like the physical aspect again makes the kind of the context of the whole thing be extra difficult, but also you're still providing like an exciting experience for people that it sort of seems like no matter how someone came to the game, whether they sat down to play it on a projector or they found like 2 of the QR codes, there was still something meaningful there because you were still like, people were still playing games. It just wasn't maybe the big game, but also doesn't have to be the big game.
Yeah. And that was intentional of like, I want people to have an experience, right? Whatever that is. Accounting for different personality types, different kinds of like people that want to play these things and want to be at this event or not. People, if there's like people that like get dragged there by a friend and they're like, oh, I don't really want to go. People that are intimidated by capital V, capital G video games. Like, I don't want to touch a controller. I don't want to press buttons. Like, that's scary. I don't want to be in front of everyone doing stuff on the screen and like maybe failing.
Yeah.
Those people can go around and like wander into like, there's a lecture hall nearby, and I think there's only one person, because I explicitly explained to them that there were QR codes in that lecture hall. But if you wanted a nice quiet time away from all the clamor, you could go across the building to the lecture hall, which is empty, and just kind of, look for QR codes under all the seats. That's something you can do if that's how you want to spend your time.
That's great. Do you want to talk any about like sort of another process of like using Godot? Anything special you did there? You said you use like the sprite tile map thing, so I'm assuming you had some like node, you built a level in it, you have a character with a character controller. I assume Godot has some ability to just like receive network signals on builds, like, or did you have to build a sort of separate process, or could you talk to like Godot directly?
Yeah.
How did that stuff work? And was there anything else you sort of did in Godot?
Yeah, so I think the Godot part is probably the least interesting just by that. It is like for the quote unquote like the proper game part is we looked at Zelda. We made a Zelda, right? It's like we wanted to make something that's like accessible. People could come up and be like, oh, I know how this works. Like, this is how I play this.
Yeah.
So we could be weird with the other parts of it. So like the mechanics and gameplay of that aren't too interesting. The WebSocket stuff, Godot does have a built-in module of, I forget what they call it, behavior, whatever. They have a built-in thing for WebSocket requests, and I was actually pretty like familiar with that. When I worked at No Goblin, we were working in Unreal, but I've been doing Godot stuff for a couple of years, so I was trying to like help smooth out our like pipeline for playtesting stuff. Like, we wanted to like play the game for a little bit, do QA or whatever, and like record ourselves playing and have that footage. And I put together this Godot. I made basically like a Windows app in Godot. It wasn't really a game.
Yeah.
But it was called Dorcas, the Dorcas Playtest Assistant. Dorcas is their mascot, their little goblin. And so it's a little Dorcas, the little guy. He pops up kind of like those old like desktop pets, if you remember those, like that come up, sit in the corner of your desktop. So he pops up at the bottom corner of your screen, and then he like takes out a camcorder basically, and so you can visibly see that he's recording. And the idea is that this is something we could like package with the test version of the game that they were working on. And someone like my mom or something, right? Someone who doesn't know how to like use OBS could start the game. This little guy would pop up and say, all right, I'm recording. And they would play the game. And then once the game was shut off, he'd put his camera down and it would send that footage back to a server so we could analyze it. And I did all that stuff with, there's Godot in the middle. And then using the WebSocket stuff, I packaged OBS with it, the Open Broadcaster System. And then OBS has WebSocket communication stuff that is built in. So Dorcas could send a message to OBS to say, hey, start recording, hey, stop recording, hey, save this file here, send this file off. And then I also set it up for Unreal. I believe Unreal also had WebSocket stuff. So I could basically, when the game started, when that process started, it would start up the Dorcas as well, who actually would know, like, based on like in-game things. I don't think I got far enough of actually like implementing stuff, but in theory, you could do it where like you play the first level and it could actually like cut there or make a marker in the video to say, oh, this is the first level.
Yeah.
And then the level ends and it's like, okay, we're going to cut the video there. And now here, this single chunk is just this part of the gameplay.
Right.
So that was kind of like a project that I worked on at No Goblin. So I was very comfortable with the WebSocket stuff at that point.
Yeah. So you're like, oh, it's easy.
Yeah.
There's no Dorcas involved, but
no Dorcas this time, unfortunately.
Was there like any choice to use like Unity or Unreal or something else for like the main game? Was there a reason you chose Godot?
Familiarity, I guess.
Okay, so you used it before.
Yeah. I've used Godot a lot. I like, since I was paid a little bit from NYU to work on this, I paid a couple of friends to help me with it. So Taylor Anderson helped me with it, and they also know Godot stuff. It was like an easy, kind of for them to slot in to make something like that. And then I think it makes sense for like a 2D game, I guess. Like we could use Contra or something too if people were comfortable with it, but that was Godot is the most familiar for us.
Did you use the like Godot script, or did you use like C# or something else?
Yep, we used GD script.
Yeah. Was there any like, I guess like for like the code itself, like is there, I don't know, I know like some, I don't know, like I know like enough about Godot script, but I haven't like really dove into it because I haven't really used Godot before. But I wasn't sure if there was like any sort of like overriding architecture of what you did, or it was just basically like, here's a character, we could just using standard character controller, input whatever, and then like you're making a game that is sort of fundamentally ephemeral, or not fundamentally, but it's like it's going to exist for this night and then go away. So I'm not sure how concerned you were with like clean code,
No, it's ugly. I mean, the Godot game is, I think I was looking at today, just like reviewing the repo, and it's like, I think probably the day of that we were like still putting stuff in and like trying to fix things and whatever, there's like a bunch of assets in the root of the project. That's not how we do. That's how we normally do things. It's like these sprites should be somewhere else. This music, this all this stuff, and it's like,
you're like dump it all on assets. We'll worry about it later.
There's just a bunch of stuff. Later is never. Yeah. This is the first time I've like really, aside from like kind of pitching people on it, like, oh, this is the thing that I made. This is the first time I've like really thought in depth about the project since I so to speak, shipped it, I guess.
Yeah. Did you, I want to go back to one thing you said, and we can start wrapping it up, but you mentioned like during the show itself, you had to like delete a door.
Yeah.
So people would get through it. Presumably you deleted that door, and that's like, as far as I understand it, you're not using some external level data, whatever, and loading it. You're like, it's all just in Godot. So did you like delete a door in Godot and then like rebuild the game and then sort of relaunch it there? And I guess the server itself, like, did you have to re-handshake with the server? So like clients that were connected had like a stale old Godot version, or like, so only new people, I guess, what was that process like for kind of, you rebuild the game, right? Does that mean that every person that's playing one of the dreams no longer is able to actually communicate with the running game, or did it like not matter?
I don't think it mattered. I think it was pretty unfussy about it. Basically, is like the Godot game would come in, it would connect, it would disconnect, it would reconnect. The server would just kind of deal with it, right? The server would just
there's no strong link between like the current Dream instance and the like instance of Godot that was running.
No, it was all pretty because all that really Godot cared about was like, the main thing was like, I need to make sure that these JSON blobs that it's processing don't change, right? Is like, it's going to get something. It's like, impact is the key is impact, and then the value is whatever the impact is. As long as that is getting back into Godot and it's getting processed in a way that makes sense, Godot doesn't really care about like what the server's doing. The server doesn't really care about what Godot is doing. It knows that it has to send these impacts or receive them or whatever.
Does Godot, this is what I don't know about Godot script, does it have like kind of built-in deserialization of JSON to types, or is it just kind of anonymous JSON blobs?
They're just anonymous blobs. You can do some processing with it that I think we just didn't need any of that for this.
You're just like, it's the key. You're like, there's
it's like
here.
It's just the key. It was like the fact that it's even JSON is kind of like, a format. It's just
Whatever.
like we're making
Could
it
just be a
fancy by
string.
making it JSON. It could just be a string, right? It's like
Yeah,
I'm gonna make this like, there's one key value pair in these curly brackets, I guess, just because I like being fancy, I suppose.
I guess like the last question, did you run the server on a computer that was on the network there, or was it like just some like cloud function somewhere?
That's a good question. That was something I fretted about. It's like, do I want this? Because again, like the thing for me was like, I want this whole ordeal to be pretty frictionless for people. I don't want them to have to download stuff. I want them to like, for example, like change their Wi-Fi to a certain network or something to like make sure they're all in the same subnet.
Right.
I knew that the networking stuff could get real messy real fast if I'm like making it something local. So I was just like, yeah, just put it. I like had like a DigitalOcean like droplet or whatever, just like a server stood up online, and that was just something that we considered the whole time through the project. Is like, okay, as we're making these mini games, the impacts of them, right? These need to be things that can be asynchronous. Like we don't want to have things where it's like, oh, there's a pit you have to jump over, and then someone somewhere has on their phone a jump button, like that.
Sure.
For a lot of reasons, it's not going to work. But on a technical reason, a technical standpoint, like when you press that jump button, I don't know how long it's going to take for the character in Godot to actually jump, and I don't want people to feel that lag. I want them to have that magic of like, oh, I did something on the phone, something happens, but it needs to be stuff that's not so immediate. Not like I'm deflecting a fireball. Like there's no combat in the game, right? Because it's like that's not something that we could really do in a way that would feel very good.
Well, it's also it's like another weird thing with like sort of the context of the event itself, because you've got like 400 game developers also crammed into this space that have phones that have they're connected to the Wi-Fi because they want to like check whatever. Yeah. So it's like you're sort of competing with those people to be like, oh, hopefully it gets through. And it's nice because like if a call like gets rejected, right? Like I don't know if your server has retries in it or anything, but like, or the clients, but it's like it's not the end of the world if like one of these packets doesn't make it.
Yeah.
Maybe the first door would have been an issue, but it's not like you can be a little fuzzy with it.
You just delete the doors. That's fine. I don't need those.
Yeah, just delete the doors. Rebuild the app.
Just delete the doors and rebuild it.
I mean, if you're not live debugging at your install, like, are you even doing an install?
No, and it's
that's what I would ask.
It was in the moment, it was the worst night of my life, right? The first like 30 minutes is like I've ruined I'm never gonna work in this industry again. I've made a fool. These people are never gonna want me back here. But it's like I later found out that like everyone had issues. My favorite
100%.
So Rob Dubbin also had a game there. And the night before we tested his game, it's like a multiplayer, like sort of like you're on a city council and you're trying to like make decisions together and doing votes and things like that. And you have these nice little like tactile keys, the mechanical keys to press. And the night before we play tested it, you can have like these tiebreakers. And after you run out of tiebreakers, you only get 3 of them. You can't do anything anymore. When there's a tie, you have to kind of just sit there. And I would just sit there and clack the keys because it was fun. It's just like they're nice feeling keys. And after that, we went out to dinner and I was like, hey, Rob, I like hitting those keys, but I hate that they don't do anything once I've used up my tiebreakers, which happens pretty quick. You should make those like you can tap them to like refill a meter. And if you tap them enough, you'll get another tiebreaker back. And he's like, that's a really good idea. And mind you, this is the night before the event. So he goes home, he goes back to the hotel or whatever, and he implements that, and it immediately breaks his game the night of the event. So I think I kind of sabotaged him a little bit, but also, I had problems. We all had problems.
Everyone's had problems. Did you get to play test it?
My game?
Yeah.
No, I mean, not really. There's not really a good way to do it, right? It's like we could tell that it like was working and things were talking, but like we couldn't play test the loop. Yeah, it was like the server's up and running, and like I said, there's a lot of Godot problems, a lot of like things not working in the Godot game. But like, I'm really proud of the server code. All the games, you could get them from your phone. All the QR codes worked. The server stayed up the whole night. All that stuff worked great. It was just some of the honestly the basic stuff, right? Just like the actual like the Zelda game programming. The Zelda game that's supposed to be just like super easy because it's just a Zelda. We kind of dropped the ball next. We were so concerned about we tunnel visioned on the other parts. But yeah, everyone there had issues. Also, the fire marshal did you hear this story?
No.
The fire marshal showed up like 30 minutes into the event and said like, hey, you're not coded. You're not sanctioned for this. Like, we don't have like the permits for this. And they tried to shut us down. They were trying to shut the event down. And so they had to like quickly put up signs for like occupancy limits, and then like grab like these like old IKEA lamps out of storage to like make sure the signage was properly lit, which just seems like it creates more fire hazards to me. I don't really know if that was a good
IKEA
solution.
lamps, yeah.
But yeah, so even the organizers, the NYU folks, also had, it was a stressful night for everybody. Yep.
I mean, it was packed. Like the event was packed. I was surprised how packed it was. Every year, I feel like they try to get like a slightly bigger venue, and every year it's like just as packed.
Yeah.
Izzy, it's great talking to you. Do you have anything you want to plug before we wrap this up? Anything coming out? Since you got some new secret project that unclear if you can talk about.
Yeah, you can find me online. I'm isnotiznaut.com. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm isnot most things on my itch page. Go back, play some of my work. I've got Dreamscape Explorer, obviously, as we've made very clear, is not something you can really play anymore. I did upload Channel Surfing, which is one of a handful of games that I made for it. It's specifically a Bitsy one where you kind of like go into TV land and have to like solve some problems there. But it was one of the more like involved ones that I worked on and spent a lot of time on it. And I just thought it was a cute little one. So I made that available on my itch page to have some aspect of the Dreamscape Explorer experience available to the public. Who knows if any other part of it will be someday. Maybe I'll like open source the server or something, just so people can like be upset about how I did all the code. But yeah, and then I'm writing a book too, which I can't really talk too much about. But
Congrats.
that hopefully sometime this year there will be some news about that. It's been in the works for a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it was great having you on the podcast, Izzy.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's wonderful.
And thank you for listening to Game Data. And we'll be back again soon. Have a good night.